What's up YouTube, this is BystanX79. Today I'm coming to you with my latest deck profile video for June 2021, and today guys we're going to be looking at my updated Amorphage deck. Now Amorphages have to be among probably my top 5 favorite Pendulum archetypes of all time, and the reason why is that Konami designed this archetype to be an amazing control archetype. How do they control an opponent? Well, all the Amorphage monsters, they have the ability to lock down the extra deck, preventing players from special something from the extra deck unless they're Amorphage monsters. That alone right there can just cause huge problems for the people you play against because there are so many extra deck dependent decks out there. Furthermore, when you start putting the Amorphage monsters into the scales, you get other additional controlling effects that prevent your opponent from utilizing other cards, and that combined with the extra deck restrictions can really make it hard for your opponent to actually gain a foothold, leaving you the ability to actually control the duel and win. Alright, with that being said, Konami hasn't given this archetype any other support since its initial release. It was a once and they're done style archetype, and now it kind of sucks. But considering that this is a Pendulum archetype and a Dragon type archetype, we can then extend into generic Pendulum support as well as generic Dragon support to really help augment this deck. And I have a feeling that has really helped this deck, this particular build, get amazing support and be able to do a lot of different things. Right? With that being said, we're going to jump right into this profile. Okay. First things first, I just want to talk about a few things about the Amorphage monsters before we actually move further in this profile. For starters, all the lower level Amorphage monsters, the level 2s and the level 4s, in order to get their extra deck lockdown effect, they need to be either Pendulum summoned or flipped face up. If you just normal summon them or special summon them via other means, you're not going to get this effect. Now, it's not going to be that detrimental to you, especially if you're going first, because this will allow you to actually access your own extra deck to be able to set up other things onto your field to cause more consternation for your opponent. One other thing, while the Amorphage monsters are in the Pendulum zones, you have to have another Amorphage monster in your main monster zones in order to turn around and get their Pendulum effects. Just one is all you really need. And not only that, but you also have to be paying a tribute each turn during your standby phase to maintain their Pendulum effects. So you have to get additional monsters on board to be able to tribute off so you can actually continue to reap the benefits of these effects. That being said, I can tell you right now, you're going to love these cards. First and foremost, we have Amorphage Lechery. 2 copies is all you need because you want to keep the number of monsters that are outside of the scales down. The scales are 3 and 5, so that can cause some issues, especially with the level 2 here. But while Lechery here is in your Pendulum scale, you're not activating spell cards unless they're Amorphage spell cards, and that just hurts your opponent because every deck needs to use their spells. Next up, we have 2 copies of Amorphage Gluttony. While this card's in your Pendulum scale, guess what, guys? Your opponent's not activating monster effects. So yeah, just automatically the 2 level 2s have some of the most powerful effects in the Pendulum scales, which is just amazing. Alright, for those that don't like the back row decks, you have 2 copies of Amorphage Greed. Greed will basically just stop your opponent from using trap effects. And last but not least, we have 2 copies of Amorphage Wrath. And Wrath, while it's in the Pendulum scale, prevents your opponent from tributing monsters unless they're Amorphage monsters. And that can actually hurt decks that require you to tribute other monsters, like things like Monarchs, or even, say, Ritual decks like Dragon. This plus Lechery can basically mean GG against your opponent playing Drydens. I mean, yeah. Moving forward, 2 copies of Amorphage Sloth. It's again with a higher level scales. Level monster, so you can't really be Pendulum summoning it through the normal scales. But while this card's in your Pendulum zone, guess what, guys? Your opponent's not searching, and since every deck searches nowadays, yeah, this effect is going to come in very handy. Also, a side note: the higher level Amorphage monsters All they have to do is be summoned to the field in order to lock down the extra deck, and that's it. And then moving forward, we have one copy of Goliath. Goliath, big beat stick of level 8, but while this card's in the Pendulum scale, any card your opponent sets to the graveyard is banished instead, and considering that a lot of decks out there now are using the graveyard as a secondary hand, banishing those cards, not a bad idea. Alright, and that's it for the Amorphage side of the deck. We're going to get into some generic Pendulum support. And the first card is going to be 2 copies of Luster Pendulum, the Dragon Slayer. Typically, we're not going to be utilizing this card as a monster to put on the field. We want him in the deck primarily for his Pendulum effect. Basically, when he's in the Pendulum effect, you can target the other card in your Pendulum zone, destroy it. You can then search out an additional copy of that card from your deck to your hand, which is awesome. And based on what other cards you have in the field, you can even get an additional card on top of that, which is just huge. So he's here to help you regulate your scales, to be able to adjust to what your opponent's doing and be able to stop them. So definitely an amazing card to have. The next card I have is the 2 copies of Supreme King Dragon Darkworm. Darkworm is just a sick card. On summon, you're actually going to be able to search out one of the 2 Supreme King scales. I'm just going to show you. You have Infinity and Gate 0 in this deck as well. The primary reason why I'm running this particular package in there is basically because the Amorphage scales are very narrow. It's 3 or 5, which means you can only Pendulum summon out level 4 monsters from your hand. And that can be problematic, especially when you get the lower level or higher level monsters into your extra deck. That being said, by being able to manipulate the scale levels by utilizing the Supreme King Gates, you're going to be able to access those other monsters that are typically outside of the scales, which is huge. Okay, so we have that package to help support, and that's pretty much it for the Pendulum side. We do have a few other Earth Dragons I want to in this deck. Alright, we have 2 copies of Golem Dragon. Golem Dragon, while this card is on the field, your opponent cannot target any other Dragon type monsters on the field for attacks. You get 2 copies of this card on the field, you're pretty much locking out your opponent from attacking, which is huge. Especially since I'm using Ties of the Brethren, and this deck is easy to get this card out and just be able to lock your opponent out from doing things. Next up, I have 2 copies of Mythic Tree Dragon. Mythic Tree Dragon is another level 4 Earth Tree Dragon, so easy to Pendulum summon with just the normal scales that the Amorphage monsters provide you. But also, its effect allows you to target a level 8, another Water Attribute Dragon monster that's on the field and change its level to that. And the Water Attribute Dragon monster that we have is going to be one of 3 copies of the Mythic Water Dragon. Mythic Water Dragon is such an amazing card in this deck because you can special summon this card for free out of your hand whenever you control a Earth Dragon monster, and this deck is packed full of them. So definitely it's a worthwhile monster to get a free body on the board, so you can actually be able to utilize it to tribute off for your maintenance cost of your pendulums, of your Amorphage Pendulum scales. Or you can utilize Mythic Tree Dragon's effect to actually go into your rank 8 place. Alright, for the spells, we got 3 copies of Amorphage Infection. Oh, Infection is awesome. Basically, whenever one of your Amorphage monsters is either tributed or destroyed by battle or card effect, you can actually then search out another Amorphage card from your deck and add it to your hand. So, utilizing that whole scenario that I mentioned with Luster Pendulum, popping one of your cards, if Infection's on the field, you're actually going to be searching out a copy that you just destroyed and getting an additional Amorphage monster into your hand as well. So that right there is just huge. Also, this card counts up the number of Amorphage monsters that are on the field and increases the attack of your Amorphage monsters by 100 times the number of Amorphage cards on the field. This card does that. This particular effect can stack, so if you have multiple copies of this card on the field, you pretty much can power boost a lot of your Amorphage monsters to greater heights. Okay, we have 1 copy of Dragon Ravine. Pitch a card from your hand, send another card to your graveyard. Helps get Darkworm into your graveyard, or just helps set up graveyard plays to maybe even get Goliath out of the graveyard as well. So, very useful. 2 copies of Dragon Shrine, again, to help start your Dark Worm engine. We have 3 copies of Pot of Extravagance. I can tell you right now, Pot of Extravagance, anytime you see this card in the deck, it's going to mill. I mean, this deck doesn't really rely heavily on your extra deck. However, I don't like useless cards in my extra deck, so you know damn well my extra deck is going to be stacked. So either way, you're going to be getting cards onto the field or into your hand. We have 2 copies of Return of the Dragon Lords, which just makes sense since we have at least 4 different level 8 monsters in the deck. It just helps you get those monsters back onto the field, whether to utilize those effects again, or even just as additional tributes during your next standby phase. Furthermore, this card acts as protection for your Dragon-type monsters from being destroyed by card effects or battle, so yeah. Win-win right there. We got 3 copies of Ties of the Brethren. Ties, this allows you to pay 2,000 life points, target a level 4 Earth Tribute Dragon-type monster, and you have to special summon 2 other level 4 Earth Tribute Dragon-type monsters from your deck right onto the field. So it just helps set up your board to be able to go into extra deck plays if you need to, or just be able to get cards onto the field to use for tributes. And last but not least, no Pendulum deck is worth a salt without 2 copies of Wavering's Eyes. Pop 1 of your scales, you could actually be able to hit your opponent with effect damage, 500 points. You pop 2 of your scales, you're able to search your deck for another Pendulum card to add to your hand, which is just awesome. Being able to regulate control of your scales with Wavering Eyes and Luster Pendulum just allows you to control the duel that much better. And it just allows you the flexibility to adjust during the course of your duel so you can actually perform other plays. That's it for the main deck. 40 cards. We're going into the extra deck. Like I said, with Extravagance, none of my cards are in my extra deck are useless. So we have 1 copy of Abyss Dweller. Plenty of grave-dependent decks out there, so Abyss Dweller is a natural fit in any deck that can go rank 4. We have 1 copy of Majesty Majin, the Ascending Dracoslayer. On the turn it's XC summons, you could actually get an end phase search for a Pendulum monster, which is huge. Furthermore, you could actually detach materials and get a Dracoslayer monster that's in your extra deck onto the field, which is awesome. A face-up Dracoslayer monster, to be more precise, that's Luster Pendulum. So yeah, you get an additional monster on the board, you can use as tribute, so definitely very worth it in this deck. I am running the Utopia package just basically because it helps you get you over problematic monsters. You got Baguska here for Storm, to shut down monster effects. You got Dagares. Giving up different phases of your next turn can allow you to do different things. Giving up your draw phases allow you to draw 2 cards. Giving up your main phase allows you to special summon a monster from your graveyard back onto the field in defense position. Or giving up your next battle phase can actually allow you to double the attack of 1 monster on the field. And of course we have Queen Dragon Jin. Oh, this card is just amazing. While this card's in the field, your opponent can't choose any other Dragon monsters as targets except for this card. Combine this with the Golem, yeah, you're pretty much shutting down your opponent's chances at being able to destroy any of your Dragon-type monsters. Furthermore, this card can detach a material, target 1 level 5 or higher Dragon-type monster that's in your graveyard, and special summon onto the field. It can attack and its effects are negated, but bringing back a Mythic Water Dragon, not a bad thing. Especially if you want to use it for a tribute for your scales. Next up, 1 copy of Tornado Dragon. Quick play effect, can actually pop back row. Going into the rank 8s, I'm focusing primarily just on the Dragoblean play, primarily because it just allows you to open up a lot of different things, whether you're going first or second. So summoning out Dragoblean using Mythic Water Dragon, Mythic Tree Dragon, can allow you to actually access into different cards, specifically your number 92 or your number 100. Typically what you're going to do is if you're going first, you want number 92 in the field, basically because this card will detach a material from it and banish any card that was normal summoned, special summoned, or set during the course of your opponent's turn, and that can just be devastating to your opponent, especially during the end phase. If this card is in the graveyard, you can actually basically special summon this card back, and then it gains attack equal to the number of cards that were banished, which can also make it a big problem if they could try to out it. Furthermore, you have number 100. This is a card that you want to be using second. Typically use Dragon to summon this card going second, and then this card will actually have 9,000 attack, so you can actually punch pretty hard with one card. Last ring hit card is going to be number 38. Helps negate spell cards if you don't have luxury in your graveyard, and it can also redirect attacks if you don't want your opponent attacking specific cards and you don't have your Golem Dragons up on the field. Going into links, you have 1 Dragoonity Knight Romulus to help search out your Dragon Ravine. 1 Hieratic Seal of the Heavenly Spheres. This card is just nuts. Contribute itself off, pounds one of your opponent's monsters off the field, and gets you a Dragon type monster out of your deck onto the field ASAP. The attack and defense are bottomed out, but still, summoning out Goliath that way is not a bad idea because there's additional body on the board. You can lock down your opponent's plays even further. And yeah, just wreck your opponent. And last but not least, I am running 1 copy of Mrs. Radiant, 2 Earth Tribute monsters. It's a sick card to actually have. The power boosts all Earth Tribute monsters by 500 attack. It decreases the attack of Wind Tribute monsters by also by 500 attack. So you can take on Stormwind of the barrier statue, Stormwind, excuse me, a little bit easier because you're just reducing its attack even further. If this card's ever popped, you're getting an Earth Tribute monster back from your graveyard into your hand, which is also very awesome. Guys, that is it for my Amorphage deck for June 2021. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to like the video. If you want to see more content like this on my channel, make sure to subscribe, enable notifications so you don't miss any uploads. Check out the description box below. Find the invite link to my Discord server. Join the conversation. We'll love to have you. Check out the links to my affiliates, tcgplayer.com, as well as sidediceversus.com. Great resources for any of your player. Follow me on social media. And guys, as always, until next time, peace.